were talking earlier about how like art cannot fundamentally change the heart of an evil or a good person, like one way or the other. But as long as you're talking about people whose hearts will absolutely never ever change, no matter what, I'd like to talk about the people who carry out the grand designs of American empire overseas and bring you the long-awaited return of the Chapo reading series. Because I know I haven't done that in a while, but I found that I saw this New York Times op-ed this week, and it screamed out at me in a way that like very few things have of recent note. And I'm just going to read here the headline and the subheadline. This is by Elliot Ackerman, and it just says in his bio here, Mr. Ackerman is a former Marine and intelligence officer who served 5 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. Headline, The Afghan War is over. Did anyone notice? Subhead, the troops are staying, but we can declare an end to our forever war. So there you go. The Afghan war is over. The troops are staying.
I am kissing the first nurse I see. Who's coming to Times Square with me? We did it, boys.
Longest war in American history. Dust off the old hands.
Yeah. You're welcome, Afghans.
Okay. Do you remember, like, I mean, longtime fans of the reading series will note that, like, one of the things that I've noticed, or like when these little sort of like drinking games are just like, you know, do a shot every time this turns up. And like, this usually isn't like really shitty, like National Review writers. They will always begin their interminably stupid and grade school level fucking essay by referencing a great book or author. Let's see how this guy begins. He goes, I first read the Iliad in high school. That's the first line. That's the first line of this.
Oh no.
I first read the Iliad in high school. He goes, the translation my teacher handed out had a single photograph on the cover. American GIs on D-Day storming out of a landing craft onto Omaha Beach. What fucking edition of that book of the Iliad had that on the cover? That is disgusting.
That's the greatest generation edition that had the Tom Brokaw introduction.
Oh,
that's
great.
So stupid. God, Tom Brokaw needs to be executed for being annoying. Tom Brokaw has like a Twitter account now where he's like, do you what's the tea, sis?
Oh God.
Like, I need you to be executed by a military tribunal for doing that. Stop it.
So he goes here, many years later, after having fought in 2 wars of my own, that image has come to resonate in a new way. If the Iliad served as text for ancient Greek wars, Alexander the Great, for example, is said to have slept with a copy beneath his pillow when on campaign. Oh, thanks for that little fucking gem from the historical record. This is really informing what a fucking smart guy you are. He goes, then World War II has served a similar function in our society, framing our expectations of war, becoming our American Iliad. We still expect to be the good guys. We expect to be there to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we expect that the war is over when the troops come home. Okay. As long as you're talking about like World War II as the text for how all Americans understand other wars, like I think I would say that that's 100% true, but not in the way that this guy imagines. It's the text for our understanding of wars, and like it's that and like the Revolutionary War and the Civil War are like basically the only wars that are taught in school. Because World War II is, if you're talking about examples of wars that America has fought against other countries, it is literally the only example of a war we fought that is even halfway justified.
Yeah. Or one of the only ones that's both justified and we had a decisive victory. Like, you know, we weren't really in the right in Korea, and it really can't be said that we won. Definitely didn't win Vietnam. Like, what are you going to teach Grenada and Panama? That both, you know, for how small the wars were, for how much we, you know, rolled those 2 small armies, we committed a ton of war crimes that you just never hear about. You never fucking hear about. The Gulf War, that's briefly taught in like some AP classes, but they never teach you about the Highway of Death or American war crimes.
So this guy's going on. He goes, but that final expectation that a war is over only when all the troops come home has never really held true. Not in World War II and not today. Among the myriad challenges inherited by the incoming Biden administration will will be not only ending our nation's longest ever war in Afghanistan, but also clearly defining what ending a war actually means. The new president will be handed a less than durable peace negotiated by the Trump administration with the Taliban, as well as recent significant troop reductions. And one of the greatest trials Joe Biden will face in public, not only expecting our soldiers back, but also conditioned to believe that wars are only over when all troops return. If the goal is reducing all troop levels in Afghanistan to zero, we're ensuring that the war will drag on for years to come, enshrining its status not only as America's longest war, but truly as America's forever war. Well, good thing that's not happening. He goes, which returns us to the Iliad, to the importance of narratives we apply to war, and to our long-held misconceptions about homecomings. There are nearly 40,000 troops garrisoned in Western Europe. Their presence has secured a generations-old peace in the countries where World War II was fought. We also stationed nearly 30,000 troops in South Korea in a decades-long effort to ensure stability in the region. Despite episodic violence and metaphorical saber-rattling, no one would argue that these wars are ongoing, and most would concede that our presence has provided a much valued source of regional stability that has made both the world and America safer and more prosperous.
Yeah, that's why.
Absolutely.
That's why no one wants, like, everyone in the Korean Peninsula just wants us fucking gone because of how much peace we're providing. That's why we're stationed everywhere, to ensure peace. It's not that this is just a fucking protection racket.
I love the idea that, our 30,000 troops in Germany is what's keeping that government in power.
Yeah, no, European peace is not just shared economic interest and the cost of the greatest war in human history. It's us. It's a GI drunk driving to Eminem's Relapse and running over three guys in lederhosen. It's so fucking. Did you see that thing today about how the Pacific Islanders are finally going to be given Medicaid because we gave them radiation poisoning and cancers and all these things.
Yeah, because we blew up about 1,000 H-bombs.
Testing nukes in their home. This place on the other side of the world that we decided was our home now. We used it just as a staging ground for weapons that should not exist. We gave these people fucking illnesses they had never had before. And then we said, hey, we'll give you shitty fucking Medicaid. And then during the 96 Welfare Reform Act, it just wiped that out. They said it was an accident, sure. And then now 25 years later, they're finally giving it back. That's what all... No. Imperialism is just... It's going to someone's home and making their life worse in ways that they never fucking imagined. It's you're not ensuring peace.
And then 70 years later, allow them to claim Medicaid benefits for the fucking generational cancers and diseases caused by like I said, several hundred H-bombs exploded in that part of the fucking planet.
Yeah, that's what our business is. Our business is not. This is the most. Not only is it wrong, it's just so fucking pompous. It's so fucking pompous. If a war broke out in Western Europe between, Germany and France right now, what do you think the U.S. military would do? They'd be making TikToks and then getting fucking obliterated by Gladio-era Davy Crockett stashes.
But also, I like this idea that, hey, we stationed all these troops in Germany after World War II, even though the war, no one would say that war is over. It's like, well, yeah, when we did that, the Nazis didn't still control 30% of the country.
Well, we know. We put them back in charge. That's why
that's true.
That's why they didn't
also
fight
true.
us.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. They ended up
because we just said, here, you're in charge now. Whereas we overthrew the Taliban and we won't let them back in charge.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's just unlucky that no Taliban guy knows how to build a new type of rocket. Or we don't need them yet to torture people.
No, you're right. I guess that was a wrong example because it turns out they were still controlling half of the country. It was just called West Germany.
Yeah. Same thing in Japan. Same thing fucking everywhere after World War II.
Yeah, we took the defeated militarists and fascists and we just changed their job titles. That was pretty easy. The troops are just there to fucking pad the books.
But I love this idea that, our presence has proved a much valued source of regional stability. Yeah, we all remember that famous part in the Iliad where Homer wrote, sing to me, muse, of the rage of Achilles and how it provided much needed regional stability and for the city of Troy and its surrounding city-states. It goes on here, it says...
Pete Buttigieg writes an op-ed in the New York Times about vacationing in Troy.
Helen has a glamour that's launched 1,000 ships. He says here, it goes on, he says, obviously Afghanistan today is more volatile than Western Europe or East Asia.
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
you
maybe
could
so.
argue that.
Just a little bit. But U.S. troops stationed in country have remained relatively safe in recent years. 4 men died in Afghanistan this year, but in 2020, many more service members died in training accidents at Camp Pendleton alone.
How many
And he goes on to talk
Afghans
about training.
died, though?
Yeah, no, he says
They don't matter.
4
They don't
men
matter.
died in Afghanistan. Oh yeah, American troops aren't being killed in Afghanistan at like a decent clip anymore, but you can bet everyone else there is being killed by them. I mean, like we know
Or
for
their
sure
death
that.
squads that we train.
Oh
Let's not
yeah,
forget
exactly.
that.
Right.
No, like left out of this fucking article is like the same fucking week. The Intercept has a new fucking like expose about in Afghanistan, CIA trained and backed death squads killing a schoolhouse full of children, just stacking up their bodies and dumping them in a ditch.
As the part of a broader strategy of going into religious schools and just shooting the fucking students as a way to prevent the Taliban from recruiting.
Can't recruit any kids if they're dead.
And so it's like, yeah, like, hey, you will be able to say from the American point of view, if we do just have a couple of bases full of fully protected Americans who mostly sit on the computer all day and there's a fucking TGI Fridays in the mess hall, yeah, the war is over from us. Not for Afghanistan, which is not the same thing you can say for fucking Germany.
He goes on here, say, Afghanistan in 2009 is not Afghanistan in 2020. Where once we were fighting to win a war, today we are fighting to sustain a tenuous peace. Does this asshole think that this fucking line of bullshit is novel or new at all? I heard this shit about the Iraq war in 2007 when the surge was fucking happening. Like, oh no, we're no longer fighting a war. We're helping to prop up our democratic government or to maintain the peace. It goes on to say, this is a distinction Mr. Biden should make to all Americans. That means, assuming conditions on the ground remain stable, decoupling the phrases U.S. troops in Afghanistan from the U.S. war in Afghanistan. Gee, thanks, Marine intelligence officer. I'll be doing that myself. I'll just go ahead and decouple the phrase U.S. troops killing people in death squads in Afghanistan or training death squads to kill school children in Afghanistan from the thought of U.S. war in general. Because it's different. It's totally different. They're doing regional stability. Regional stability. We got to keep having that.
We can.
Also untrammeled access to 90% of the world's heroin supply.
Oh shit! Yeah, that whole thing. Yeah, that wasn't really a big part of Germany. Was making sure that we had all the fucking heroin we could traffic.
He should emphasize how our presence in Afghanistan stabilizes the region. Stabilizes the region. Stabilizes the region. I remember this shit back during the fucking height of the Iraq war. When people would talk about how Iran needs to be confronted because they're destabilizing the region. Who the fuck on earth has destabilized more regions than the US military? Just by them being there, it destabilizes the fucking region.
We
Jesus
love doing that. We love
Christ.
the stabilizing. It's why we do this shit, because if things were stable, they might be able there might be able to be like non-American centers of like political and economic power developed that could run counter to our desires. That's not going to happen.
That's the entire game. American empire is a protection racket. The entire game is no one can be self-sufficient or anything. No, they should
have to be a client of ours.
They need to drop this fucking prick in Afghanistan with just his copy of the Iliad. There's nothing I'd like more.
Hey, yeah, regional stability. Folks, you ever been to like a bar or a restaurant and they sit you at one of those shitty small 2-person tables, but it's like all totally unbalanced and it's all just like shaking back and forth and things like that. And then sometimes the waiter will come over and he'll just put a little wedge under one of the legs. And then you're like, stability. That's what the U.S. military is doing in Afghanistan.
Yep. We're like, the little matchbook underneath the wobbly table at the bar.
He should also then explain that conditions for our forces in Afghanistan have changed over the years, that the work these troops are doing is different than the aggressive combat operations that characterized their presence a decade ago, thus announcing what so many already know. For us, the war has all but ended. Again, like for the people in people who live in Afghanistan, this is totally out of this equation here. He goes, the Bidens are a military family. Beau Biden's military service and his deployment to Iraq has been a fundamental part of the family's story. The president-elect most likely understands that the psychology of a forever war is a fraught one, particularly for veterans and their families who have struggled for closure with a conflict that always simmers on low boil in the background, not only of their lives, but in American life writ large. Oh yeah, not only in their lives, but in the lives of their children who are now joining up and being sent to Afghanistan. He goes, unlike veterans of World War II who were welcome home with ticker tape parades, or even those of the Vietnam War, when stomach-churning images of Saigon's evacuation at least gave them a moment to pause and declare the nightmare over, veterans of our generation's wars have had no such closure. Mr. Bryden ran on a platform of unity, asserting that this was a time to heal our country. Perhaps in the opening days of administration, he might pause and focus on the healing of veterans as a first step to a broader national healing.
No, yeah, that is the thing we don't talk about in politics enough is veterans. No one talks about them. That's right, man.
Part of that healing will be reframing the war in Afghanistan.
I love to reframe a war.
Reframing the war in Afghanistan. That means welcoming our veterans home from, okay, first of all, you said at the very beginning they're not coming home.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
a good number of them are still going to be there for the next 100 years doing Christ knows what. Like I said, operating drones, facilitating the shipment of tons of opium into European and American markets to fund, off the books black ops for the CIA and Christ knows who else. He goes here, they're staying, but we need to welcome the veterans home. For some, this has been a decades-long odyssey. Oh, there you go, another Homer reference. Yeah, he's a smart guy. Not only of service in our forever wars, but as veterans of wars that have simply refused to end. It's time to tell veterans that it's over, that they and we no longer need to live in a state of perpetual war. For service members still deploying to Afghanistan, it's a time to clarify that they are no longer prosecuting a war, but advancing a peace. And who knows, if handled correctly, it might be the first step in ending our perpetual wars at home too.
Yeah, you see this just closet I have filled with tiny skeletons and trapper keepers with Pashtun phrases written on them. That was part of the piece I secured.
It's just like it's just the fact that this guy is he's a shitty novelist, but a former Marine intelligence officer who's been given just like the New York Times is like piping him in to just let you know. Just decouple in your mind war in Afghanistan from anything the U.S. military is doing there, because it's not a war anymore, and we can all just say the forever wars are over. And I like when he says earlier that, like, for veterans and their families, like, or but the Bidens understand that forever wars are very fraught. It's like, yeah, no shit, they understand that they're fucking like their checking account for what they're able to like spend in terms of political goodwill in the American public on these forever wars is rapidly running out. So it's time to reframe. It's time to reframe these forever wars. They're not forever wars. They're forever pieces now.
I have to say, how is this not as fascist as like the Tom Cotton op-ed or anything else that like people complain about at the New York Times? This is like as offensive as anything I've ever heard. Like this is fucking disgusting.
Because like Afghanistan has been a fucking charnel house ever since we got there. We've never stabilized shit. It's horrifyingly violent. We've been the troops have been coming home in general, but civilian deaths through droning and fucking death squads are on the rise. And the pitch here is we do that forever. The only difference is you just literally don't think about it anymore.
Yeah,
that's the pitch.
This is, I mean, the New York Times fucking repulses me beyond belief, and this is one of the most repulsive things I've ever seen them run in the past 5 years. But I'm sure they run things like this all the time, because this is their MO. This is the same people that had Judy Reardon, just a fucking out-and-out just maniac Zionist running their fucking Jerusalem desk. Like, no, this is who they are. It's keep the war forever, but either feel bad about it or just don't think about it.
No, this is an explicit call, from a guy who I'm sure is not like some sort of fucking like right wing coffee company trope. Like this guy is like a novelist trope. He probably went to some fucking Ivy League school as well, I'm sure. But he's pitching it to like an audience of not fucking yahoos baying for more blood and conquest overseas. He's just saying, look, the war is over. Sleep now. And just in the headline, just say the war is over. The troops are staying, and then spend all those paragraphs trying to just lull you into this sense that you can hold those two ideas in your head at the same time and not fucking just catch on fire like a robot that's been told some sort of logical loop that's going to make them explode or something. There we go. Like I said, these people's hearts will never change. The American empire will never change. The only way out is to completely dismantle it, bring all the troops home from everywhere, not just Afghanistan, but Germany and Korea too.
Yeah.
Guess what? Nobody fucking wants us there in those countries either.
There's no better way of life we're giving anyone. I mean, maybe we'll give you Medicaid after fucking 70 years.
Fingers crossed. Hold on. For that one.
You can get but no, no one wants.
I mean,
us
it's just
there.
like
It's time to go home. You don't get to stop thinking about it.
And then when he said like the Afghanistan of 2009 is not the same as the Afghanistan of 2020, well, it's like the media fucking propaganda is exactly the same. Because like I said, like I was going insane reading this because it was like these are all the hack neoconservative arguments I read when the Iraq War started going bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the
same
exact same fucking thing. And this idea, just the idea of like regional stability, that's what the American empire does. That's what it provides for the people of the world. And hey, you may want to bring the troops home, but just think how unstable things would be if they weren't there. And it's just like at no point does anyone bother to fucking ask the question, that we are the cause of all this violence and instability. And like, if we were so concerned about this, we would just simply stop doing our own crimes and not worry about like theoretical imaginary ones that could happen in some fucking alternate future.
You say that, but do you really want America's heroin users to have the money that they're buying heroin with go to Chinese intelligence and not American intelligence? I don't think so, sir.
Yeah, heaven forbid.
Do you think it's a coincidence that there was like a huge spike in heroin use in America right after the Vietnam War, and then coincidentally right around the time that America got involved in Afghanistan?
And in both places, both first the Golden Triangle and then Afghanistan, poppy production spiked dramatically,
skyrocketed by like thousands of %.
Yeah,
you know the worst thing about buying heroin? Your dealer always wants you to read some shitty op-ed he wrote.
Yeah, I hate going to cop a bag of Skag and you have to spend 20 minutes listening to the author of I forgot whatever his novel is called. Yeah, you have to listen to this bullshit.
Yeah, he shows you his copy of the Iliad. Everyone hates that with their dealer.
Yeah, he starts. It's like, here, you got to read the first chapter of my new book, The Damascus Sanction.
No, Matt. Actually, no. His next book is called 2034, and it's like a speculative future history.
Oh hell yeah!